Welcome to my talk about Bnd and Bnd tools and what happened since the last conference in Mainz. Similar to the talk before, thanks. Yeah, it's going to be a speed run over the main features I think are worth noting. I'm Christoph Rüger. I work for Synesty. We are a SaaS no-code platform where e-commerce people can connect various systems without coding, and we're using OSGi basically since 2010, and it's a pretty good fit for what we're doing. On GitHub, that's my handle. You can find me there. So quick agenda, give a quick intro, and then I go over the various points. What is Bnd? Quick hands, who has worked with Bnd or knows what it is or has any touch? Okay, a few ones. So Bnd is a set of tools. It's a lot of things, but mainly it's a library for generating OSGi bundles and the manifest. So by analyzing Java class files. Usually, in Bnd, you have those configuration files, the Bnd files, where you can control how the manifest is generated. You can imagine it like a template language. And it creates a jar file which has a proper manifest in it with all this stuff you see there, which you would normally have to create by hand if you wouldn't have a tool like Bnd. But it's also a build tool. Not many people know about that. We are using that. It's a so-called Bnd workspace model. And yeah, it's basically a folder where you can organize your bundles and build it into executable products. So when we talk about Bnd, we basically have the Bnd or Bnd lib, which is the core engine. You can also use it as a jar in your own project. Eclipse IDE does that for manifest generation. You have the CLI, which is a command line tool. You have Bnd tools, which I will talk about in a second, which is the Eclipse plugin. And you also have plugins for Maven and Gradle and whatnot. So, yeah. What happened in the Eclipse IDE plugin Bnd tools? One of the cool things is the effective view. When you worked with Bnd before, you had this Bnd editor, which is a text editor basically for writing those Bnd configuration files. And it has some features like syntax highlighting and stuff. What's the problem? What you see is not what you get really. So there's lots of stuff happening in the background. There are includes, there's inheritance going on, and there are default values, but you don't see that. The effective view is basically shows you what Bnd sees, which is really helpful. You see the resolved values, you see where, from which configuration, from which other files something is coming from, and you also see errors. You also have a nice source view, which is quite handy for copy-pasting resolved Bnd file. So this is a very valuable tool for development because you finally see what Bnd is seeing. The repository browser. It's a view inside Bnd tools which shows you all your repositories. One of the cool things we added is that the Maven-Bnd repo, which is a Maven-based repository, now can be maintained as a pom.xml file. Before, you had a flat file, which one Maven coordinate per line. It's nice and compact. Problem is, tooling doesn't understand it, like Dependabot. So this is quite cool. We can now maintain our dependencies in a pom, and Dependabot can automatically update them. The Bnd cache repo, it was hidden before, but it was there and was considered and resolved process and everything. It's now shown, which helps you to know that it exists and what's going on. Yeah, we also added you can refresh the cache, which is sometimes necessary. If your local M2 repo is messed up for some reason, you can re-download a dependency. We added some performance improvements, fixed some memory leak, and the last cool thing which just recently got added or will be available with the next 7.3 is the P2 feature support. So if you're working with P2 repositories, for Eclipse applications, then you now can use features, which can include other features and bundles, which is quite nice. Before you just had the bundles there. In the upcoming 7.3 of Bnd, we added a bundle graph view, which is a nice visual way of exploring your dependencies or your bundles. It helps to understand what's going on. It helps to with debugging. For example, I used it to identify that we're using a dependency which I didn't expect in some kind of way. So just makes things visible, yeah. So the other tool we added is the Bnd run analyzer. It's a tool for cleaning up stuff which is not used. You can basically select all your Bnd run files, right-click, analyze Bnd run, and it checks against all your repositories and your repository viewer and identifies any dependency which is not used by any Bnd run file. It's just good to clean up. Regarding compliance, important to not have stuff lingering around which is not used. This is also pretty helpful to keep your stuff clean. Some quality of life fixes. When you're working with Bnd files, you can include other Bnd files, and sometimes you want to overwrite a value from an included file. When you write it like that on the top, I don't know if you can see it, Bnd now gives you a warning that you put a little tilde in front of that, and then your overwritten value takes effect. It's a little annoying thing which Bnd does, but now at least you noticed it. The Bnd editor tooltips now link directly to the docs, which is quite handy to quickly check something. If you want to find out about some instruction or macro. And if you're working with subbundles, Bnd now has better error reporting and shows more information in a marker in which subbundle something went wrong, which it didn't do before, so you always had to guess and figure out what was happening. One of the maintainers of Bnd tools, Scott Lewis, he is the maintainer of the Eclipse communication framework. He added support for that into Bnd, mainly some nice templates and wizards to set up projects. His main specialty is OSGi remote services, where you can build client and server stuff with OSGi bundles. And just recently he also added stuff for MCP, which is interesting for people who want to build AI applications with the MCP protocol. And it basically helps you to set up a working project which already has this, and you could start playing around. If you're interested in this, go to the ECF project and start playing around with it. What happened in Bnd core? One of the main tasks of Bnd maintenance is adding support for new Java versions. We have 24, 25, and 26.2. Why is it important for Bnd? Basically, it means telling Bnd the Java package or the packages which belong to the JDK, so Bnd can use that information to create better manifests, more correct ones. There was also something added so that Bnd now detects the packages better when you use proxies, like this. So there were cases where Bnd couldn't really follow that and didn't detect some packages. Now there were improvements, so your manifest import packages contain more and more precise information. So Bnd can also has a P2 exporter now. So basically you can create P2 repositories with it, which are properly signed and have checksums. And as a proof of concept, where Bnd or Bndtools uses it itself to create the P2 repository, which you basically install in Eclipse when you install Bndtools from the marketplace. Okay, the next topic, quite complicated, but I wanted to put it out there because it might be interesting for library authors, which are not that versed with OSGi. So OSGi has a mechanism called package substitution. That means for each export package in your manifest, it automatically, BND automatically creates an import package. With this new instruction, no substitution true, you can disable that behavior. There were ways before, but they were error prone because you could forget it. So what's the problem with this package substitution? Package substitution is a mechanism for a very specific corner case-ish OSGi use case. And if you don't know what you're doing, it could lead to hard to debug resolution errors. I think Ed has had lots of pain with it. So that was also one of the cases why we created that. So if you're a library author and OSGi is not your thing, just put that to true, and it will probably make life easier, because 90% or 99% of the people don't have that package substitution use case. So yeah, makes it easier, and maybe in the next major version we think about making that the default. Yeah, there were some improvements on JUnit. JUnit 5 support. There was a problem in the earlier version that you had to pin your JUnit to a maximum version, which was not the latest, because BND couldn't handle it. Now I think we are, BND can use the latest JUnit 5 version. Unfortunately not JUnit 6. That's a bit of work. If anybody wants to contribute and has JUnit 6 knowledge, you're welcome. For people who are using declarative services, DS, BND was a bit sloppy before and created invalid service descriptor files if you didn't pay attention, and the problem with that was it only showed up at runtime. So at runtime is always too late, as we know. We want to see it as early as possible. So now BND is a bit stricter with the validation. For example, if you're if you don't have a public no argument constructor, or you're missing the activate annotation, or if you have an inner class which is not static, now BND complains and tells you, hey, it should be like this or that. Okay, last 2 minutes. BND CLI, the command line tooling, there was also some work. So BND helps you to set up a project more quickly now on the command line. So you could, for example, do BND add workspace to create a workspace folder with the right structure, and then BND has something called fragment templates, which is little snippets to assemble your workspace. And you could say BND fragment, it gets you a list of available templates provided by Bndtools. And for example, we have one which is the demo web app, and it creates you a folder to get started. And then the new thing is an experimental feature we call the dev server. You can say BND dev, point it to a BND run file, and it starts up a server, and with the running web application, and you can go to any editor, make Java changes, it automatically recompiles, reinstalls, and so yeah, it gets you started very quickly to play around with anything OSGi related. Same template fragment mechanism is also available in Bndtools since 2 years now, where you can do the same thing to get a project. Yeah, finally, BND has Gradle 9 support, and for those who didn't know, it's also possible now to build BND workspaces with Maven, who prefer the Maven world instead of the Gradle world. Thanks to Eclipse IDE, there's a pretty neat pom.xml integration where you just basically add a small configuration file and it works out of the box. So, cool, I stayed in time, thanks. Yeah, that's it. Those are the URLs. BND always needs new committers. The old guys basically retired. I'm one of the new maintainers together with Peter Kirschner. And the project is more than 20 years old. It's used by a lot of projects to generate the manifests. Most people probably don't know that. And yeah, we always need new people to help out. Thank you.